بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters and friends, and all those in between. Welcome to today's Sapiens Institute live stream. And today we're going to be talking about a very important topic with a very important brother Imran Hussein. He's one of our researchers and instructors at Sapiens Institute and now an author, alhamdulillah. And he has recently written a book and we've published it as part of our Sapiens publishing, part of Sapiens Institute. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it for free on our website, sapiensinstitute.org/books. You just type in your email and you can download the book for free, a PDF file, an ebook. And the book is called Dying to Believe, My Quest for Life's Ultimate Meaning. And this book, dear brothers and sisters and friends, I love it. I was listening to a few chapters just the other day, and the kind of intermingling of a personal story, an existential story, and articulating philosophical concepts. It's so seamless that you don't seem that you're taking from one domain of knowledge to the other. And it's written quite well, actually, and is written for an audience who wants to engage with a particular book, but with a personal narrative, but at the same time wants some deep concepts, some positive articulation for the Islamic tradition, but through an emotional and personal and theo-philosophical context as well. And it's a fascinating read. I recommend every single one of you download the book. Go to sapiensinstitute.org/books. And you could also click the button to receive a paperback copy from Amazon. So we have with us today Brother Imran Hussein. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, bro.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you, bro?
Good, alhamdulillah. So good to see you, bro. May Allah bless you. And jazakallah for writing the book. So the first question I have for you, my dear brother, is why did you write the book? What's the backdrop? What's the background story to this book?
Okay, so I guess there's two main things that come to mind when you ask that question. One is that at the time where we were thinking of writing the book, we had Richard Dawkins publish a Outgrowing God, that book that he wrote for a younger audience, which didn't have many references in it, was written like a story appealing to younger children, teenagers, etc. So that was one of the things that came to mind, and we actually, I remember we discussed it as well. One of the things we wanted to do is have something in that genre, that type of style, where we're addressing a younger audience, teenagers, young adults, young Muslims, basically. And we had other similar books as well, like by Alam Shah, the Young Atheist Handbook. So they were doing some work in that type of style. So we wanted to do something similar to cater for that audience. So I remember when we spoke about it. And the other thing was that, mashallah, I think it's important to mention that this book isn't, it's not solely my product or something that belongs to me. It's actually a team effort. You have a lot of credit, that for this as well, because you inspired it, you encouraged me to write the book, because initially I never thought of writing a book. I never thought I could write a book. Even when we first started discussing writing the book, I was so petrified at the idea of writing a book that you said, don't worry about it, we'll get a ghostwriter, someone will write it for you. You just go through the story with them. But as I got into the process, I started to write it myself, and yeah, it took a while, but yeah, alhamdulillah, and then now we have the book, alhamdulillah.
Excellent, bro. And what's really important from what you're saying is that a lot of the kind of atheists, the new atheists, they were all already providing their version of the world, their worldview through a personal and existential story. And we felt that it was important for us to provide a book to do that as well. So people who are entering college or university, or even the general masses, if they want to read a book that is easy to read, but is also deep and profound, and it goes through a personal and kind of conceptual narrative in a way that mingles together in a seamless way, then this is the book for them. And we wanted to really fill a gap in that space, because we don't really have books written by Muslims or articulating the veracity of the Islamic tradition in that way. So this was like a challenge to the kind of humanist stories that are being produced and the atheist narratives. And yeah, you're right. So I think it was Alam Saha and Richard Dawkins. They already have written books that have that kind of feel and that theme, and we wanted to basically challenge that. And it's very important because not many people like reading deep philosophical books or theological books that are embedded with deep concepts. They want a personal story because it's very hard to refute a story, and it's very hard for you to challenge someone's personal experience. Now, if you're articulating it with a true personal experience and you have the truth at the same time, then it's going to be a fantastic book. And that's why I think your book is extremely fantastic, bro. May Allah bless you. I remember, I think many years ago, maybe 5 years ago now, we sat in the office and I was recording an interview, right? That I was interviewing you about your life and your story, which then became the basis for this book, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
We did
yeah.
a podcast. There was a podcast that we recorded
It was a podcast, but
for,
there was
yeah.
also an audio recording that I did a private interview, and I remember I
Oh
think I
yes,
was
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
we
think I
did
was
that as
actually
well. Yeah,
I was quite moved by your story. Even when I was listening to it the other day, there was parts of me that I wanted to cry, man. So Jazakallah here for writing it, bro. It's very moving, it's very powerful, and it's very authentic. What I mean by authentic, you reveal yourself in without any negative intentions to the reader. You reveal yourself in a way that you don't have any negative intentions. You want positivity for the reader, so they learn from your experience and they're touched, moved, and inspired. So Jazakallah here, bro. So I have another question. So all right, you've talked about the background to the book. What is the book about? I mean, obviously people are going to read it, but to encourage people to read it, how would you describe the book in a few paragraphs?
yeah. It's basically my story, right? And it's my journey. So again, like you said, bro, we've got this type of style from the atheists. They write about the journey away from religion or away from Islam and how they left and how it changed their life and how it made their life all amazing. But the reality is totally different. I mean, my story, and you've had certain experiences in your past which are similar as well, where we were at a point in our lives where life didn't make any sense. The world around us didn't make any sense in the absence of God. And this is an experience many people have. So it wasn't easy to sort of write about my story and the experiences that I had. Even when I was reading it back a few months ago, when I was doing a review of it, it took me back to some of the dark places I had been in the past. So it wasn't easy to even read again. But I think the idea was, or the thought behind it was, that I wanted to share this because I really felt that people could connect with this story in one way, or the other. It will relate to people. Many people go through such experiences. A time of crisis in their life where things don't make sense, things don't add up. They don't know who they are. They don't know who their creator is. They don't know what they're doing here. On top of it, life isn't going fantastic. Things are upside down and they can't make sense of it. Evil and suffering, trials and tribulations. People find themselves in these positions. And, I wanted to share my story and show them that, look, one of the things you could take from this is that life is a journey and it's not supposed to be paradise. You're here to go through a test and you're here to worship your creator. And a part of that journey is going to be, are you going to use the faculties and the tools Allah has given you? Are you going to use the trials and tribulations He's placed in your life to turn towards Him, to find Him, to seek Him out, and then to submit to Him and to worship Him? And how that changes your life. So that's why I really want, I finally, made the decision. Okay, I am going to do this and commit to it and write this. And it did take several months, and alhamdulillah, it came out really well, at the end of it. So I think people that read this, Muslims, non-Muslims, whoever you are, when they read this, I'm sure they'll find at least parts of the story they can relate to and connect with, and they'll definitely take hopefully something away from it as well, inshallah.
Yeah, I felt it was very powerful, especially your existential crisis. And I was thinking when I was reading the first couple of chapters or listening to the first couple of chapters, what I felt was that subhanallah, Allah blessed you, bro. Honestly, He blessed you with these experiences and the journey itself. And I was kind of thinking that on the day of judgment, when you see all of the reward and all of the divine blessings and divine mercy and boundless love that's going to be showered upon you, you're going to wish that you had that experience 1,000 times. Now, I know, when people read the first few chapters, they're going to be like, oh my God, this is like darkness. Like, I would rather have one of my legs removed maybe than experience what you experienced, bro. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
tough stuff. And, I echo some of your experiences, not all of them, because obviously we had different experiences. But that kind of that existential angst, or that search for meaning, or my one was more about, I thought I was the only one aware of my own awareness. What I mean by that is that I had a very lonely experience when I was around 12 years old, and I felt that I can't really know that people have conscious awareness. Maybe I'm the only one with conscious awareness, and that was a very deep, lonely experience. But nevertheless, maybe highlight some of the experiences, or one experience in terms of the existential angst that you had, in order for people to be encouraged to read the book, because I think it is a very, very powerful story. Because there's one part of the story when you're basically saying that you were looking at a piece of meat in the butcher's, and you said there is no real difference between yourself and the piece of meat. And I explain the background to that, and how you
Yeah.
kind of
So
recovered from that.
yeah. So look, when you don't have belief in Allah, when you don't recognize a creator, essentially what you believe is that, well, you exist, the world around you exists, and you are basically a biological, physical being, and that's all there is to it. The so concept of spirituality or a soul or things like this don't exist in that worldview or that perspective of looking at reality. So I was really, for many years plagued by these questions and thoughts, and they were constant. Like they were the most important thing that I had to figure out, and I had to find answers to: who am I, what am I? And the only conclusions I could come to in the absence of God was, well, look, you're just this physical being made of matter, and that's it. There's nothing else to it. There's no more. There's no further conclusions you can come to, and you just exist by chance, and you're just here by chance. So that specific incident was when, walking past a butcher shop. You see meat hanging in the window, and I remember looking at it, and this realization hitting me that, oh my God, that, what's different between you? And I stood there and asked this question: what's different between you and that piece of meat that's hanging in the window? Sure, that piece of meat hanging in the window doesn't have any skin on it. It's just, muscle. But, well, that's what you are as well. So what differentiates you between, what differentiates you and that? And that, the emotions and the feelings that came along with it, naturally being a human being, emotions follow thoughts. They were quite intense. Like, well, if there's no difference, then what does my life even mean? I could be hanging in that window. I mean, it'll make no difference. It'll be the same. Um, and even the first experience I had when it first kicked in, when I was thinking about these questions for a while, but I kept pushing them away and getting on with life. But there was one moment, it's right in the beginning of the book, where I go home after school, and it just suddenly hits me. It's like the rug being pulled out of from under your feet. Like, it was almost like, okay, now reality's hit me. Nothing around me makes any sense. What is this even real? Is my room real? Are these walls real? Am I real? And that realization, when it hits you, not that it's the correct understanding of reality, but at the time it was the most correct understanding based on what I believed in my worldview. It's a very scary place to be. It's like you've grown up around the things you've grown up around, but you don't really recognize them anymore, or those emotions associated with those things are gone. They're just sucked away, because you don't know what they are. You don't know what their true nature is. So it was a very, very dark time, and I was in my early teens at the time, maybe like 12. I don't even remember, maybe 12, something like this, 13. I can't exactly remember how old I was, but I was very young, and it was a very, very scary place to be. And these phases kept coming because these questions kept coming, these thoughts kept running through my mind. What am I? What am I doing here? What's my purpose? And again, to emphasize the point, in the absence of a religious worldview, in particular an Islamic worldview, which we'll go into and explore a little further, in the absence of God, on a sort of purely sort of secular materialist way of looking at reality, that is what reality is. That's all. You are an accident. You are a physical, biological being that's accidentally here. There is no rhyme or reason behind your existence. Now, most people, yeah, okay, recognize this and they just push it aside and get on with life. But there are other people that just can't do that, because that is, it's an important, painful realization to have, that that's all you are. So what is the point of doing anything? So, I went through many of these experiences for many, many years, and it was very, very difficult. But like you said, I think, now looking back, and Allah always does, there's always a purpose behind things. As no matter the level of difficulty you're going through, no matter the level of pain you're going through, the suffering you're going through, ultimately it all has a meaning behind it, and it's all good for the believer, especially.
Mm,
Now
mm.
I look back, I'm holding the copy of the book in my hand, and it's just like, okay, this is what it was all about. Now, and not only have I understood why it all happened, because, and on top of that, not only do I have Islam now, and I recognize my creator, that in itself is the greatest blessing and worth all the trials and tribulations in the world. But on top of that, now this is hopefully going to benefit others and bring me more rewards, inshallah. So the good that's come out of it, the little I've been able to understand, even in this life, it just falls into place, and it makes sense that everything, for me at least personally, that everything happens for a reason. So
Yeah,
all of
I
my,
think
yeah,
it's very powerful, bro. Because a lot of people in the Dawah today who want to share Islam, they're not very authentic about themselves or their lives. There is a massive kind of gap between who they really are and what they promote to the world, which is fine to a certain degree. But I think with you, bro, not just the book, but with your style and with your Dawah in general, is quite inspiring because there is a sense of sincere authenticity about it, and the book comes across that way because you talk about, for example, the problems that you had. You talked about the drinking problem. You talked about all of these other issues, which I feel, that takes a lot of courage for someone to reveal, especially in a kind of Muslim, domain, yeah, in the Islamic domain. And that authenticity comes through, and I think it's very, very powerful. And I think in a nutshell what you said, and I think you mentioned this in the book, that we're just rearrangements of electrons and carbon. What kind of profound or ultimate difference is there between that piece of meat and me as a human being? We're just rearrangements of the same type of stuff. And if this
yeah,
stuff, according to materialist or philosophical naturalist or atheistic worldview, is blind, cold, and non-rational, then how can I have any ultimate meaning or purpose, or is there any difference in terms of value between me and a piece of meat? Fundamentally, there isn't. And when people start
no,
saying, "Oh, but you have pain, you have feelings, you have consciousness, you have humanity, you have all of these things," but these are just words. These are just ideas that are reduced to neurochemical firings in the brain, which are further reduced to electrons whizzing around that are blind, cold, and non-rational. So, the way you articulate that point is very powerful, because what you do in the book as well, which I thought was really, really interesting, is the way you talked about a personal experience and you went to a philosophical topic. And it was quite seamless. It's like the intermingling, a seamless intermingling between these different domains of knowledge and narrative. I was like, wow, you hit that point. Actually, you hit the point home. And you talked about the existential philosophers and the atheist thinkers who try to address the problem of meaning and purpose, and you respond to it in a very kind of profound way, and you deal with it really effectively. So jazakallah khair for that, bro. I really recommend this book to anyone, really, anyone who likes reading. And if you don't like reading, then start to like reading to read this book. Yeah. So um the next question I have, bro, if you don't mind, is what alternative ideas or philosophies did you look into, and why weren't they correct?
yeah. So there was loads of things I looked into, bro. But I think I looked into several of the other religions as well, see what they had to say. Religion wasn't the first thing that I sort of it wasn't even in the mind, to look at religion generally. It was mainly like, okay, let's think about it for myself. Couldn't come to any answers, right? Then I looked at what some of these, philosophers, the existentialist philosophers. I didn't know that they were existentialist philosophers at the time. Looked at some of their works on this. Didn't really make much sense, because what I gained from it or gleaned from it was that, well, all they were saying was, you know, let's just make stuff, like you mentioned many years later when I came across your work. Well, let's just make stuff up. Let's just talk about some fantastic things in a powerful way, about responsibility and living upright lives, and elevating yourself and creating things for yourself. And it sounds nice, it sounds interesting and exciting, stuff you hear Jordan Peterson spout these days as well. He's taking a lot of his stuff from these existentialists as well, about creating meaning and living upright lives and doing this and the other. But again, where is that coming from? These are just ideas that are, again, being produced in the brain, which is just a set of atoms and molecules in motion. You're just coming up with these things. They have no intrinsic value. They're just ideas. They sound good. Sure, they may make you feel like your life has some meaning, in the short term, but this is not your ultimate meaning. You're just making stuff up. So it didn't really add up. The way I thought about it was, look, why should I do all of these things? You know, what's the underlying drive behind it? There isn't any. You just live and you die, and you're just an arrangement of atoms. Why not just live the way I am living currently, just not doing anything about it? You know,
Mm,
some people would say, well, why not just go fulfill your desires and have fun? You know, forget about all of this. So you know, each for their own. But I think it's a very sort of, in some ways, a very shallow way of addressing the problem. It's almost putting a band-aid on the problem. You know, you're saying, okay, there is no ultimate meaning to life. Let's just make stuff up for ourselves, and just this whole idea of making stuff up for yourself. Let's elevate this and put this on a pedestal and make it seem like this is the most profound thing you could do in your life. Why is it the most profound thing you could do in your life? You know, it didn't make any sense to me. I couldn't see any rhyme or reason behind it. And then eventually I started to look into some of the other religions and stuff, but I couldn't find anything as far as meaning was concerned. You know, mostly you would find religions talking about, you know, do this or don't do this, and this is a good way to live, and this is Islam was the last thing I looked at, because I knew I was born into a Muslim family. You know, I knew that, you know, my parents were Muslim and so on. So I thought, well, I've been born into this. Obviously, the answers aren't there. Otherwise, I would have found them, you know, by now. I had read the Quran growing up as a child. You know, I'd learned the Arabic, how to read the Arabic, growing up. So I thought, you know, if the answers were going to be there, I would have known them by now. So I didn't look into it till the very end. And then, as a last resort, when there was literally nothing left, that's when I looked into the Quran. And I think it was in a tafsir, and I think I mentioned it in the book as well. It was in a specific tafsir of a verse, and I just opened the Quran and I came to it, and it mentions something about in the tafsir of this particular verse. I don't remember what the verse was, but that just like at the darkest point of night, you know, the rays of light come through and break the darkness. That's how in the darkest moments of your life, you know, the rays of guidance come through and break that darkness. And that really hit me. Remember I closed the Quran at that point, and just that shook me up for days. It was like that was for me. It was speaking to me. You know, and then I started reading the Quran, and then the more I read, I realized, well, all the answers are here, and I had never read the Quran in that way before. You know, I had never read the Quran with in the English language before, that I could understand it. I'd read it, recited it, you know, memorized parts of it, but I didn't know what it was saying. And that's why, you know, inshallah, in the future, the project we have coming, the Young Muslims Guide, and that will inshallah be a book as well. You know, one of the main problems I want to address in that is that, yes, Muslims are born into a Muslim family and we are Muslim, but many young Muslims don't know or understand Islam as a comprehensive worldview. That's a holistic way of looking at reality. Allah has given us all of the answers to the most fundamental questions that we ask. So it's not just the do's and don'ts. That's a part of Islam, but that is not the ultimate objective. The objective is to know your Creator and to worship Him. And Allah gives you all the answers your inquisitive mind asks as a human being. You know, so it builds a profound worldview, and the most comprehensive, without any issues, without any sort of loose ends or anything like this. It all makes sense.
yeah, no, that's very powerful, bro. Jazakallah khair. And it's very interesting because in the book you mentioned the existential philosophers, and I think you mentioned Jean-Paul Sartre and others when they try to kind of navigate the question about meaning, because a lot of these people felt that there was no ultimate meaning for existence because their ontology, their worldview, the source and nature of reality was that they don't believe there was any purpose or divine, you know, creative power behind the cosmos or behind existence. So what they said was, well, it's nothingness, and in that nothingness you can create your own meaning. So you have a new realm of possibility to create your own meaning. But the and you mentioned something very powerful in the book, bro. You basically say, well, that's a bit like meaningless because you're trying to find meaning, but the basis in trying to find meaning and create meaning is actually meaningless, right?
Yeah,
It's a sense of meaninglessness.
yeah,
So I get what you're saying here, because you're saying, look, if fundamentally the whole basis of reality is no purpose, no ultimate meaning, even no ultimate value, and the only value and meaning you can give it is what you give it, then fundamentally it's just almost saying let's pretend to have meaning,
yeah.
right?
That's what
But
that's what they're
yeah,
doing.
but therefore you
And
can't have, yeah,
yeah,
go
go on,
on.
bro. No, I was just gonna say, it's like I think Camus was slightly different from some of these other existentialists, because he outlined what you've referred to as the absurd. You know, the absurdity of life, which is You recognize that there's no ultimate meaning, yet you can't help but strive to find the ultimate meaning, and you're chasing that. And that's so, meaning for him was whatever keeps you alive, basically, and, and prevents you from killing yourself. So he highlighted, the reality, which is ultimately there is no meaning. Sure, if it keeps you going to just make up stuff for yourself and chasing that, then yeah, keep doing that.
Mm.
So, but you're right. On their worldview, in the absence of God, there is no ultimate meaning. No matter how you spin it, no matter which way you look at it, there is no way around this. There literally isn't.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. I mean, I do want people to read the book. We don't have to get too much into the kind of philosophical and existential uh, contentions and responses and all of that stuff, because I want people to read the book. So I think the next question I have for you is, you've mentioned, some of it previously, but I just want you to unpack it a little bit further. Is, do you need Islam to have ultimate meaning?
Yes, you do need Islam to have ultimate meaning. So look, there are many religions out there. Many religions make the claim that they are from the divine source, and they are preserved as they were when they were first revealed. But when you look into this and you dive into this, you realize this is not the case. And what you realize, eventually, is that Islam is the only religion that is from the divine, and it's preserved. And you can also, through Islam, you understand, well, why, the whole history of it. Yes, God sent many messengers and many revelations, but over the passage of time, people changed the texts and scriptures, and they weren't meant to be till the day of judgment. There was this divine plan of revealing or giving us this final revelation and this final way of life, which will be till the day of judgment, which will be preserved. And the Quran is preserved. You can look at non-Muslim academic sources for this and Muslim sources. There's a lot of information out there about this. We have loads of good stuff on the Sapiens learning platform as well in regards to this. There's some brilliant books Dr. Uthman has written on this as well. So there's a lot of information there about this. So that's one thing. The second thing is that when you look at what Islam says, when Allah tells us what our meaning is, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that He didn't create us for any other reason except to know Him and to worship Him. And then the Quran outlines for us, how this worship takes place. What is this worship? It falls into place. Allah even outlines why He created us in this world, so that we're tested. Part of that test is to see, are we going to find our Creator? Are we going to turn to Him and worship Him? Our worship is being tested. We are being tested in this life. So everything is outlined very clearly. Evil and suffering. I think it is a chapter or a passage, part of the book where we address evil and suffering as well. That it all falls into place. It's a part of the test. It's why we're here. And we're going to go through trials and tribulations. It's not going to be easy sailing just because you know what's going on and how it all works and why you're here. Yeah, but now it's time to get involved in that test and then go through the process of life. So, Islam comprehensively addresses all of these areas: why we're here, where we're going, what life is all about, why we suffer, why we go through trials and tribulations. Like you mentioned, Islam probably is the only way of life that gives meaning to suffering, ultimate meaning to suffering as well.
Mm.
Sure, there's people out there, there's philosophers that have ascribed meaning to suffering and ways of looking at suffering. But to give it a true ultimate meaning, that can only come from the Creator Himself. Why do we really suffer? What is the purpose behind this? What does it mean when you go through a trial or tribulation? And it's all there. Everything makes sense. Islam
Absolutely.
comprehensively addresses everything.
And it's very, I like it the way you focus on worship as well, which, many people know that worship is basically humbly adoring Allah, is being submissive to Allah. It's loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and expressing acts of worship, based on your submission, your humility to Allah, and the fact that you adore Him, you love Him. And, you know, what's interesting when you mentioned about Islam basically tells you, or the Quran has this cognitive and spiritual reframing. It appreciates that life is a test, as you mentioned. And not only that, it basically tells you to stand in the possibility that the meaning that you're giving this test or this trial or this trauma is not the only meaning, and that you should give the meaning that Allah wants you to give it, and that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam wants you to give it. And reading your book, bro, essentially you're basically telling people, because you had that awakening through that ayah, that verse in the Quran, or the surah in the Quran, the chapter in the Quran, and the tafsir, the exegesis of that verse or that part of the surah. and that awakens something within you because you gave the right meaning to your existential angst. You gave the right meaning to your trials and tribulations. You gave the right meaning to your traumas. And the whole book really could be summarized as give your traumas, give your questions, give your trials, give your tests the meaning Allah wants you to give them. And once you do that, you're able to transcend your suffering in some way. And it's quite ironic, bro. Imagine, I just want you to have this thought experiment, okay? So imagine, I want you to go back all those like 15, 20, 25 years, God knows how long it was, right? When you're having that existential anxiety, when you're having that sense of meaninglessness, when you have that deep nihilism. And I want you now, I want, imagine someone came to you and said, you know what, in about 20, 25 years, you're going to write a book about this and you're going to help thousands of people deal with the same type of traumas. And not only would you help them, but in the process, you're going to help yourself and you're going to be able to have the ability to transcend all of these issues that you have right now. And you're going to have a great connection with the creator of the heavens and the earth. If someone told you that at that point, would you even believe them?
No, not at all, bro.
Yeah,
Like
but
no one's written a book in as far as I can remember back. No one's been that inclined towards writing and stuff like it wasn't a part of my mindset or my thinking, or
yeah,
even being involved in the dawah. That I never thought I would be involved in the dawah.
but that's
You know.
precisely my point. The point is, this is how life works, right? This is how Allah takes you on a journey, and if you're able to have ikhlas and sincerity, and you're yearning for the answers with sincerity, and you're yearning for Allah, then irrespective of your trial and tribulation, Allah will pull you out from that. And that's what happened with you. And that's why I want to mention it. I wanted to mention that to you because just look back, just connect the dots back now, saying, SubhanAllah, I've
Yeah,
written a book
yeah,
now. I'm helping thousands of people. I'm in a different situation. And this reminds me of one scholar who said that when Allah chooses something for a believer, you can't, no one else can choose anything better, even if from a kind of finite fragmentary perspective, in the moment perspective, we might think it's all doom and gloom, but in the grand cosmic scheme of things, it's the best thing that Allah has chosen for you, man. So yeah, I just want to reiterate that again.
yeah. Absolutely,
Okay,
bro.
good.
It's
So but the funny
it's
yeah, go on.
yeah. Go on.
Well, the funny
No, no.
thing is, you write the book and you talk about that you solve these questions, you found Allah, you found Islam. But then you talk about a very interesting turning point, which I really echo and mirror many of your sentiments and even your experiences. And I think they should be highlighted, especially in today's age when we have a lot of algorithm prostitutes, right? We have prostituted ourselves to the algorithm, you know, likes, shares. We don't really think about deep, meaningful impact. It's all about abstract numbers. I don't have any real life, consequences. We just have anecdotal evidence, and we're just basically become slaves to the algorithm, right? We're not slaves to an objective or to a Allah centric, akhirah centric strategy. And so you write in the book that you found Islam, but then you got involved in dawah, and then you lost yourself again. So please explain this to
Yeah,
us.
yeah. That's sort of the sort of second crisis, if you like, right? And I think it highlights a couple of things. Number one, you don't deserve any of this, regardless of what you've gone through, right? There was probably a point where, so when I came out of this, um, and that moment you realize this is the truth and it hits you. That's a life-changing moment for people, especially if you come to Islam as a new Muslim. There is a moment that realization really goes one level deeper, and it really hits you like a bright light, and you just know at that moment. It's beyond philosophical argumentation or rational arguments and people convincing you. It's beyond seeing things with your own eyes in front of you. There's a moment that happens where it really hits you and you know it's the truth. Now, when that happened, I was extremely grateful, because I had been suffering for probably close to a decade, maybe longer. I don't know, many, many years on and off, right? So that was a very profound moment for me. And I also remember that even once I came to Islam and I started practicing, I still had some of those anxiety feelings and thoughts that were bothering me. And, I was still feeling that because I'd gone through it for so many years. And I remember there was one moment, and this was the other point I wanted to quickly make as well. Yes, Allah gives us the correct understanding of or how to give meaning to our suffering. But when you do give, it's not only that. When you start giving your suffering the correct meaning and you start to develop a relationship with Allah and you start to do the right things, Allah also gives you signs in your life. Things happen and you can't really explain them, but you know they're signs because they just fall into place. So for example, at one occasion, I remember falling into prostration and I was like, Ya Allah, take these feelings away from me because they were still there. The sort of anxiety related to everything I'd gone through over the past decade or so. And I remember literally as I came out of that prostration, after that moment, those feelings disappeared. They never came back. They completely vanish like they never existed. So these signs happen. Allah will give you signs, but you have to take that first step. There's many young Muslims, we speak to them on the lighthouse as well. They're like, I have doubts, I'm confused, I don't know, I'm off track, I'm all over the place, I've turned away from Islam. They're expecting a miracle to happen for them before they start on that journey or start worshipping Allah. You need to, it's a part of the test. Allah's not going to spoon feed you. He's not going to come and say, look, here I am, and then you believe and then you do everything. It'll defeat the purpose of the test. You have to take the first step. But when you get on that journey, Allah will show you things along the way which solidify your belief and your connection with Him. So that will happen as well. And going to the point you made, the second part of the book, or the latter part of the book, where okay, I started practicing, I got involved in the dawah, everything is perfect, I'm feeling amazing, I feel like I found my purpose, I'm living my purpose now, I'm giving people dawah, I'm calling people to Islam. I meet you, I meet Adnan, Allah's making things happen, fall into place. I meet Sabur, I start doing videos, I start getting more, I suddenly developed this ability to speak and communicate with people. Whereas in high school, even in high school, I was the kid in the class that I would be shaking at the thought of the teacher asking me the question. Not even that he's asked me the question, just the thought would shake me. I couldn't speak in front of people, and I can read books, I can deal with and understand concepts and ideas which I'd never been able to. I was never a very bright kid in school anyway, right? I would never get fantastic grades. So Allah was opening things for me, and these were signs. But I obviously didn't, out of my ignorance and maybe my arrogance as well, and my childishness, and just being a feeble human being, somewhere along the journey, I started to lose my way. These things started to get to me, and they started to affect me, and I started to think I was something special. That I had these abilities and it was me that was doing this, and I needed more views and I needed to make more videos. And when me and Sabul first started to do the LDM videos and stuff, they started to go quite viral. They started to get very popular because none of this stuff was online at that time. The only guys before that was yourself and Adnan that were doing videos, but you guys were focusing more on the academic debates and stuff like this. So there was this niche, and as the algorithm works, stuff got very popular, and that affected me. It did. And at the time, I didn't want to admit it. I was finding excuses. So you start to psychologically find excuses. Why are you chasing views? No, views are good. Views are brilliant because that means your channel will grow, and that means more people will come across the message. So it's good to chase the views, and you start to convince yourself with these things. Shaitan starts to, weave in all of these ideas into your mind, deluding you further. But then you get to a point where you realize, hold on a second, I haven't prayed and I'm filming this video, or I haven't prayed and I'm preparing to refute this person, or I've prayed but I didn't know what I was doing, and all I was thinking about was the YouTube and all of this stuff, and where was my connection? And slowly your connection starts to break down, with
mm,
Allah. And it gets gradual, it's gradual. And I got to the point where I was just completely finished, and I fell into another sort of very dark space. It was different from the existential issues I had, because now I knew, at least when I fell into this second stage of darkness, I knew logically, okay, I knew God existed. I knew all the arguments for God's existence. I knew all the philosophical discussions around it, but there was an emptiness. There was no connection. There was no, so it was like I knew, but I didn't know at the same time. I knew on the rational level, but on a spiritual, emotional, there was nothing. It was empty. And that sent me into this really dark phase for again a couple of years, a few years, maybe 3 4 years, where, and I didn't mention this to many of the brothers, you were quite pivotal in maybe preventing me from going too far down, and you probably don't even realize this, because I remember when I first joined IRA, LDM was really blowing up and it was doing amazing with views, and you made a step back. And I don't know if Allah made it so that you made us step back from LDM and doing these videos, and you gave me what I considered trivial tasks in the dawah at the time. And I've probably not even spoken to you about this stuff, in the past, but I think it'll be beneficial for people to hear this. You made me, do video editing or recording stuff, training courses. And inside, I hated it. There was a part of me that really disliked that, because in my mind, it was like, no, you need to be on the camera. People are listening to you. They're watching your videos. You're getting all these views. And now you're here doing all this back end stuff of admin and videos and editing and stuff like this. But that probably saved me from a bigger burnout than and completely destroying myself. That so put the brakes on it a little bit, which I needed at the time and I didn't realize at the time. But the point is that the way the whole algorithm is set up and the social media world is set up, we think it's a free space. We think it's you can put out what you want and you can benefit. No, it can be, but it's designed to make you you know put yourself out there. It's designed to make you chase the views. It's designed to make you chase the fame, and then the algorithm rewards you. And back then it wasn't as bad as it is today, but even then, so I was really affected by this and it really messed me up for several years.
Imran, it's quite emotional. So let me tell you something here. Um, you don't have a huge channel or reach, for example, yeah. But I could almost guarantee that because of the reframing of your dawah, making it more Allah centric, and you're not just chasing the algorithm, thinking the online world is the dawah, and you just have to submit to it and submit to the algorithm. Since you moved away from that, I am telling you, in the grand cosmic scheme of things, you've had more impact than most of the famous du'at. And I'm not saying this to throw dust in your face, because as a result of this kind of more authentic approach to the dawah, you have directly, face to face, trained people all around the UK, dawah teams all around the UK that are accessing millions of people a year potentially. These people who focus on the algorithm are not doing that. The algorithm is designed to create micro shifts in people's behavior. And when you look at an analytics, even if you do a 1 hour lecture or 10-hour course online, maybe 1%, 5% actually watch the whole thing. You have trained thousands of people up and down the country, if not all around the world, on a one-to-one level. They've sat there, written notes, and absorbed what you said. They haven't said, oh, I'm going to go to the toilet now, eat some food, I'm going to press pause. They've sat for 8 hours, sometimes 16 hours, listening to you, and you've touched, moved, and inspired them in order for them to go out and give dawah. And they now have been either part of teams, part of organizations, or individuals that are doing online and offline dawah, accessing millions of people. So from a kind of real world impact perspective, and we transcend the abstract numbers and we see what's really happening on the ground, I'm telling you what you've done, bro. Allah, you will see it on the day of judgment if you maintain this course of action, and may Allah, continue to make you sincere, that you're going to see a massive reward that is meaningful and heavy and weighty because of the work that you're doing. And the reason I'm mentioning this is not to throw dust in your face, but to get people to realize what kind of dawah they should be doing. Don't get me wrong, we should have an online dawah, but I am a true believer that the final outcome is with the righteous, Allah says. And we just need to follow principle. Success is entirely from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we just have to say to ourselves, what is the right thing to do? And du'at must always ask themselves the following question: what is the most pleasing thing to Allah in this particular context, whatever context that is? If they ask themselves that question, many of the things that they do, they will stop doing, right? And so it's actually really inspirational, my dear brother, that you have mentioned this, because we do lose ourselves, because there is a very powerful hadith. It's an authentic hadith. I'm paraphrasing the hadith with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this hadith, I believe, is recorded in Abu Dawud. I'll double check and send you guys the reference. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that fame and wealth, which are the two things, the two fitan, if you like, the two tribulations concerning the dawah, fame and wealth are more destructive to one's religion, one's iman, than two free roaming wolf amongst sheep. If you know anything about wolves amongst sheep, they get massacred. So the Prophet is saying, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying that fame and wealth are going to massacre your religion. They're going to massacre your iman, right? And we need to be we need to have people around us to protect ourselves from this. And I remember me and you used to have some very interesting, maybe heated discussions in the office about this whole thing as well, and used to push back very well. But the point is, those discussions were important, bro. They're important for me to become a better leader. They're important for you in order to find your true space in the dawah. And I'm only mentioning this is because sometimes they got a bit heated, but this is what we need. Today's friendships, especially in the dawah, are just utilitarian. They're based on
Yeah,
a benefit, or we just use people as an instrument. Wallahi, some brothers
it's
who are friends,
disgusting.
bro.
It's disgusting, bro.
Some brothers who are friends in the dawah, if they weren't benefiting from each other from an instrumental utilitarian perspective, from a like shares perspective, or because they're in the same domain, they wouldn't even have coffee together. Yeah. So the point is, but we need true people around us to actually hold us to account, challenge us, make sure that we we get the best out of each other. I was reading a few books on love recently because of the new book that I'm writing. And true love, loving someone sincerely, is that you are committed to them achieving the optimal version of themselves. And that requires you to be humble. And that requires for you to express that commitment through your words and your body language and your behavior. If someone is in your inner circle and they're not truly committed to your well being, so you reach an optimal version of yourself, then they're not truly your friend. Or it could be the case that they don't want good for themselves either, because there is a connection between true self love, wanting good for oneself, having discipline for oneself, and actually wanting, goodness for other people as well. Anyway, that's a bigger topic for another time. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because we need people around us, bro. We need good people around us to ensure that we have the greatest impact in the dawah in the long term, that we follow principle. Because if you follow principle, the final outcome are with those righteous people, as Allah says. And also that, we do things for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in moving from this, but connected to it at the same time, so talk to me a little bit about fame and dawah. What are your thoughts about this? And
Yeah,
what
I
kind of
think we mentioned
what are the what are the mechanisms or some of the solutions that we can implement in our own lives to actually not be affected by these big tribulations of the dawah? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's a big topic, bro. We all have, we've discussed this stuff over the phone a couple of times as well. But I think a couple of things just from, experience and seeing what's happening, in the Dawah circles amongst the brothers. I think the most important thing a person could do, especially if they're involved in the Dawah, regardless of how many years they've been involved in the Dawah, is to always check in with themselves every so often, and really be genuine and honest with themselves, be authentic with themselves, and ask themselves, "Oh, look, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this today? Now, 2 years later or 5 years later, what's my purpose? What's my objective?" And have to be honest with yourself, especially with the whole social media stuff and the algorithm stuff, bro. It makes it 10 times more difficult. Already the dawah was public facing, the dawah was always public facing because you're always speaking to at least one person if you're giving someone dawah. That's challenging enough. Your intention is going to be challenged, especially knowing that you're doing the work that's the opposite of the work of shaitan, and he's going to be on your case. Now add to that the whole thing about social media and views and subscribers and all. It's a minefield. It literally is a minefield, and you are in serious danger all the time. So you need to stay on top of yourself, your relationship with Allah, your connection with Allah, honesty with yourself. That just, why am I doing this? Am I slipping? Am I doing these things for the wrong reason? Am I just doing this to entertain people or to grow my viewership? Why, like you said, relationships as well. Why am I a friend with so and so? Is this friendship something beyond the whole social media facade, or is it just skin deep? So just be honest with yourselves. And it is disgusting, bro. And it's not only the brothers involved in the dawah. I think it's also important to mention this. It's not only the content creators, the people that watch this content, brothers and sisters watching this right now as well. You are also to blame, because if you're giving the views, then you're facilitating them to produce more of that same type of content. So the algorithm, there's two sides to it. There's the content creator and the content viewer. So if you're watching all these entertainment type dawah videos and debates and arguments, and this guy refuting him and this guy being abusive to him or this, that, and the other, and you're giving these things views, then you're setting that brother up to fall even further in the future, because you're not making it easier for them, right?
Mm,
Because you're shuttling the views and you're now influencing the algorithm to favor that type of content, and then that message is getting through to the content creator. And if he's watching his statistics and looking at how things are going, he's gonna be like, oh yeah, this video where I was a bit abusive and I swore at this person, or I refuted this person, did much better, 10 times better than my other videos. They're gonna do more of that stuff. So you're not helping the situation. So you have to be conscious of this as well. When you're online, you're watching Islamic content, dawah content, make sure you're watching the right type of content, educational stuff, beneficial stuff. Don't watch things, bro. Honestly, like, if you want entertainment, go watch a movie. Do something else. Okay, halal movie maybe, and not any type of movie, but just go do something else. Go do an activity. Spend time with family. Go out with your friends. Do something else. Get offline. There's a lot of young people these days are too online too much, bro. They, even I have that issue. Sometimes I find myself more, a great part of the day I'm online, and I'm like, it makes me sick. I have to throw my phone away then and go do something else to make up for it. So get offline, but if you're online, watch stuff that you're gonna promote stuff by watching stuff which is beneficial and educational, as opposed to, you know, entertainment in the dawah, because you're not helping the dawah scene. The whole purpose of the dawah is you are sharing the message of Islam with other human beings for the sake of Allah. So Allah guides them, and inshallah you'll be rewarded for this and you'll draw closer to Allah. And it's as simple as that. If that's not happening and you're getting caught up with all this other stuff, you're in trouble. And it's not a joke, bro. Honestly, that the second fall I had was probably worse than the first fall in many ways, because that was in knowing, with knowledge, knowing who Allah is, knowing I'm involved in the dawah, and this desire for views and not getting the views, and some other brothers getting the views, and why are my videos not? This will eat away at you. It will destroy you. Honestly, just that alone will destroy you, and it will make you depressed, and it'll affect your physical health. It'll mess you up in so many different ways. So,
bro, I know,
you know,
and I've seen it, and people start to adopt not a prophetic methodology. They start to they start to adopt a sensationalist methodology, and that's a massive problem. And that is taking our audiences, our community down the wrong direction, and it's sending the wrong signals. Because at the end of the day, our allegiance is to Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we have to follow what they say and how to be. What kind of way of being we must have when we're interacting with Muslims and non-Muslims, with regards to sharing the unicity, the oneness, and the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's very critical, bro. You're right. But you know what? Just keep on doing what you're doing. Keep on doing what you're doing. Keep on writing, bro. Keep on engaging with this great work. Stay in sapience, alhamdulillah. Mashallah, man, Allah
inshallah.
bless you. You're a great asset. Keep on writing the books, keep on training. We have the essentials program that is coming out, which we're going to be delivering, all across the world, especially in the UK and Europe, which you could mention in a few moments after this final question. So on to this final question, bro, then maybe talk about the essentials program, what's happening with when we're going to launch it, a rough idea, and what we're going to be providing. So the final question is, summarize for us meaning with Allah and meaning without Allah.
Yeah. So let's do the latter first. Without Allah, there is no meaning. Allah mentions in the Quran where, do not be like those who forgot Allah, and therefore Allah made them forget themselves. You won't know who you are without Allah. It's impossible for you to know. You don't choose your birth. You don't choose your entry into this world. You don't choose who you are. You mentioned this. You don't choose anything. You don't choose your gender, your hair color, what part of the world you're born in, your parents. None of this is by choice. So you don't have the answers. You don't know who you are, what you are, why you are, and where you're going. You can never find the answers to these questions without God. It's impossible. So that's that, and it's as simple as that. You can go and dissect this and go through it with a fine tooth comb and just try to figure it. You can do that, but I've been looking at this topic for the past maybe 7-8 years. There is no answers. You can't find the ultimate meaning of life without Allah. That's it. It's as simple as that.
You know what's interesting as well, bro, is I have to mention this because it's very powerful. I think I mentioned this to you a few months ago, which is, in the Quran there is no find yourself question. There
Mm.
is no find yourself, in New Age spirituality. Because what's very interesting, to be a human being is to relate. So to be is to be related, meaning how you relate with yourself, how you relate with others, and how you relate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the idea of a personality, the idea of being compassionate on a desert island on your own doesn't really exist, because you have to relate to something, relate to someone external to yourself. What's very interesting is the way Allah tries for us to find who we really are, or for us to reveal the true sense of self, the true sense of who we are, is by actually worshipping and relating to Allah and having a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah says, and you mentioned this earlier, do not be like those who forgot Allah and Allah made them forget their own selves. And Allah says, if you remember me, I will remember you. So it's as if the way we're going to know who we truly are, the correct way of being, the correct sense of self, our correct internal identity, is by not trying to discover yourself in some crazy way, but is by relating to the one who created you. And if you have a relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the right way, according to the sunnah, you will find yourself who you really are. And
Oh,
and for me, that's what came across from the book as well, bro. May Allah bless you. And everyone definitely should read it. Please go to sapiensinstitute.org/books. Download this book and all the other books that we have. We have over around 17 books, I believe, all for free for you to download. Alhamdulillah. And all our services are free, at least most of them, unless we have to charge for things like printing and so on and so forth. And the Essentials program that is coming, that is being managed by our brother Imran Hussein, is also free. So now explain to us, bro, what is the Essentials program?
yeah. So the essentials, it's our grassroots side of stuff at Sapiens, inshallah. So we have put together 4 essential courses, and we believe they're essential. And not only are they individually, independently essential, they come together and they work together, and they sort of synergize with each other. So we've got 4 courses. We've got the Dawah training course, which is our sort of advanced Dawah training course, which not only covers how to give Dawah, but also addresses the psychology of Dawah, etc., and the fitrah and everything else related to the Dawah and conveying the message to people. Then we also have our new Muslim mentorship, because obviously when you give dawah and people accept Islam, then you need to, inshallah, take care of the young Muslims as well. So, or new Muslims. Brother Yusuf Ponders, mashallah, and the other brothers have developed this course. So that's a part of the essentials package. We also have the Young Muslims Guide to a Godless World, or the Beginner's Guide to a Godless World, where the whole purpose behind this course is to really frame young Muslims in a way so when they go out there, they're immunized basically. They can come across any ideology that's out there and they'll be able to process it and it won't affect them, inshallah. And then we have the No Doubt course, which is so Muslims that have doubts, how to help them overcome doubts, etc. So all of these 4 courses are part of the essentials package and it works together. And we're rolling this out grassroots, meaning in person. You can go onto the Sapiens Institute website. I think it's sapiensinstitute.org/essentials, and you can book the essentials courses. So you can either pick one course, but we recommend doing all 4 courses through over a period of a couple of months.
Did we
Yes,
did we miss one course? So you said the No Doubt course, the
no doubt. Dawah training,
oh
new
yes,
Muslim
perfect,
mentorship,
perfect,
and Young Muslims Guide. 4 courses, yeah.
perfect,
And we've
perfect.
given it
Yes.
a nice theme as well. So the essentials, like the elements, so the fire, water, air, earth. So and we tried to pair that. We just thought it'd be nice to package them in that way, because they are that essential. These are things that all Muslims, young Muslims, older Muslims, living in the 21st century in the West, in a secular world, they need to have access to these courses. Not only will they help you, help you and help your family to navigate this world and not fall into doubt, but also they will teach you how to give dawah and to take care of new Muslims as well, inshallah. So it's a very powerful package. You guys can go and request that, inshallah, and we can come down to your local mosque, your ISOC, etc., and we can deliver these over a period of a couple of months, inshallah. So yeah, I think it's phenomenal. It's in the UK. We're rolling it out. I think Sheikh Fahd is going to be heading it in the US and other parts of the world, inshallah, as well.
Yeah, and we
Yeah,
should
we
be.
can't. We're not going to promise who's coming where. It's important to mention this as well. So you can't, although you can choose your selection of speaker, but I'd recommend, based on what we discussed today, it's not about the speaker. Don't worry about that. Just know that whoever delivers the course is going to be trained to deliver the course, and you'll benefit fully. So just request the course, and inshallah we'll get back to you.
And this, we should be also rolling this out first in the UK, hopefully at Manchester University, and also we're going to be rolling this out internationally in the US and Malaysia, hopefully towards the end of November, inshallah. So, my dear brothers and sisters, Jazakallah here for spending almost an hour, few seconds to go for it to be an hour of your time listening to us. Please download the book. You could also get your print copy from Amazon when you go to the Sapiens Institute website. If you go to sapiensinstitute.org/books, you click on Imran's book, you could download the free ebook and you could click the button to go to Amazon to also get your paper back copy, inshallah. It's going to be available on Kindle soon as well, and hopefully we may do a video series on this or even have an audio book, inshallah, in the future. Make dua for Imran, for writing the book. Make dua for his family, especially his father. His father was quite instrumental in helping Imran on his journey, which I thought was very moving and very touching as well. I don't want to give too much information because I really want you to read the book, so please download it. Last few comments from yourself, bro, and then we'll close.
Yeah, no, just keep following the work, inshallah. Make dua for us. May Allah keep us sincere. We also have the what's it called? The Dawah Principles to Engagement series that's currently going out. So definitely watch that as well. I think that will be beneficial for anyone that wants to get involved in Dawah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff to come, bro, inshallah. So may Allah accept from us, and may Allah bless everyone. Jazakallah khair.
Ameen, bro. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.